Hey everybody, I'm Greg Sowell, and this is Why Am I, a podcast where I talk to interesting people and try and trace a path to where they find themselves today. My guest this go-around is Jafa Sandouk. He's a multi-talented musician who writes all of his music, records each instrument, and then also does all the post-production himself. It's hard to imagine someone would want to do all of that just by themselves all alone until you realize that's the one way he can truly communicate with others. I hope you enjoy this chat with Jafa. Jafa, thank you for joining me on the Why Am I podcast.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. So you are a very unique, interesting individual. You came recommended highly by Alex Hajar, and that dude hasn't steered me wrong yet. So I'm expecting great things out of you. No pressure, but the bar is set very high. So I just should be prepared. So the way I always start these things is you and I are queued up. We're waiting for something. I'm assuming the ice cream truck is out front, and we're waiting to get our magnums, our almond magnums. So we're it's an exceptionally long line. Somebody's paying in like change up at the front. So we're having a conversation. I tell you about who I am, and I am really boring. So we move past that as quickly as possible. Now it's your turn to reciprocate, Jafa. So who are you?
I am a musician. A producer. I sing and play guitar for a band called Howlin' Circus. It's my own music project. It's something I've been doing for a few years now. So I write and record all my songs, and then I get some friends to come join me on stage to play the shows live. And that's what I spend most of my time doing. I am also a dog dad to a 2-year-old Anatolian Shepherd called Diamond. She's a rescue, and I cannot locate her. So hopefully she's not chewing on a sock right now.
I've seen her occasionally walk through. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think she's just having a little nap over there. And I am I was born and raised in London, UK, to Iraqi parents. Grew up in a kind of an Iraqi community in London, so that's a big part of who I am. I moved to Canada when shortly after the Brexit vote. Didn't want to be part of that mess, but now I'm inheriting Canada's mess, and it's interesting, but it's different. So it's and now I live in Toronto, and where I'm sitting now is where I make most of my music. I have my own little studio here, and I just write and record, and hopefully I'll be making a new album soon if all goes well.
Well, that was a lot of information really fast, and I've got a lot of questions already, which is fantastic.
Sure.
So one is, you moved right after Brexit. Was Brexit the motivator for you to move, or was it just time?
It was time, but yeah, I think it's the preamble to Brexit. It wasn't just the vote. Like, it wasn't the result that got me. I thought even if we voted to remain in the EU, I was done. I just
Really?
it was toxic. The chat was about immigrants. The chat was about taking back control. It was steeped in white supremacist narrative, and it was framed as if it was a nuanced debate about giving non-educated white people something amazing that they had been unfairly denied in some way, which is it was just trash straight from the gutter, from people like Rupert Murdoch, who essentially just have all our politicians in his pocket, politicians who are just interested in supporting their CEO friends. So it didn't feel like a country anymore. It just felt like just living in a corporation. Just, just and in their interests, it's be as racist as possible, dumb down the the, the dialogue as much as possible. So yeah, it just felt like what we all gained as Europeans growing up is much bigger than what we gained from being British. I think that a lot of the British element is what held us back as Britons. The European side is what kind of made some progress. I feel like the being able to easily travel and see other cultures and other people, and I think as an island, I think we're a bit insular, a bit obsessed with our inflated kind of idea of who we are. We have a queen, for goodness sake. Like it's insane. Like we have a queen. Most are like celebrities and most prominent politicians and influential figures have the worst teeth you'll ever see, and like, but it's okay because because of their class, because of their race, and or because of their bloodline or something. Yeah, it's a bizarre place, and I think it's going to get weirder and weirder the longer we spend being completely isolated and removed from the rest of the world. And I think that's kind of a key element to leaving. But there's probably other factors. I would say, it's just a case of being, at the time, being in my late 20s and kind of going like, I've never really lived anywhere else. Why not go to the place that's probably be the easiest? They still have a queen, and they still speak English. So yeah, it's not that groundbreaking where I moved to, but it's a nice change of pace, to be honest.
I've always thought, I mean, we always hear, like here in the States, like in the US, we always hear about how New York is like this big melting pot of cultures and ideas. And I always kind of thought that was the same thing for London. Like, there's a lot of nationalities, there's a lot of culture, all that stuff smashed together, right? And so did the sentiment of Brexit, did that seem counter to kind of everything you knew growing up, or do you feel like it was sort of always that way?
Yeah, I think, in London it felt like, I don't know, it felt weird. We're one of the most powerful cities in the world, yet absolutely powerless because some people a lot of people in different parts of the country are sold. I think they were conned, and they can say whatever they want about. I'm not an EU like fanatic or anything. It's still a institution largely aimed at like appeasing corporations and making them feel safer about doing business and exploiting workers across Europe. But like it also does a lot of good things, and the only reason that our current Prime Minister, Rupert Murdoch, the most influential people in the UK, why they wanted to leave the EU is so that it would be easier to control parts of our institutions like the NHS, to sell off things that matter to us. It just makes it easier for corporations to raid what you're doing when you have no backup, when you have no. I mean, that's what all corporations want, is as small a government as possible.
Yeah, less oversight.
Right, and they're never going to provide for workers. They're never going to provide for people. And not that governments do a great job of doing that either, but I mean, at least with taxpayer money, you have some chance of it going back to the people. But when a corporation is saying we don't want to pay for the roads, we don't want to pay for the schools, we don't want to pay for any of this stuff. That's the end goal. And yeah, it's a shame because yeah, you just realize that in, like, what is the point of London's power? What is the point of London's influence if it's powerless to this rising tide of corporate ethno-nationalist bullshit? There's like, you know, um, then is it really that special? Is it really that great? You know, there's always that quote about like if someone who's bored of London is bored of life. I'm just like, I'm just I'm just bored of living in a place where like, you can get steamrolled all the time and it doesn't matter. So like, and you know, as multicultural and as accepting as London is, and you know, I would still walk around my neighborhood and see racist graffiti scrawled in so many places, and when you see that, and then you see people say, "Yeah, but you know, the reason I support Brexit is for very nuanced intellectual reasons," and I'm like, "That's just you know, yeah, it's yeah, very frustrating. It's a dark period in Britain's history, and just feel like I'm glad to be as far removed from it as possible." But yeah,
Yeah. It feels like a lot of that stuff is perspective based, right? So one person arguing, for Brexit, they just don't have the upbringing, they don't have the perspective that you have, right? They don't walk in your shoes, they didn't grow up in the neighborhood you did.
yeah, and
So
it's
it's
that I
hard
think that's
when
a
people are making those decisions.
yeah, I think it's a and I think it's a system is built towards having enough people who are susceptible to those ideas. If everyone had a good education and if they taught politics properly at schools, if they taught Britain's history of colonialism at schools instead of pretending it didn't exist, or that it was some amazing thing, um, then yeah, you'd get more people probably questioning stuff, and you know, and unfairly we were pit against one thing versus another. It was I find referendums are a silly idea. It's just two ideas, one is right, one is wrong, and it's just like that's not how anything works. Nothing is binary in life, and I think it's I'd be happy to have a debate about like, okay, here are the problems with the EU and what would be better to fix it, but something that seeks to dismantle all the progress for labor rights, all the progress for collaboration, artistic, scientific, in so many ways, it just seems absolutely pointless, and detrimental to especially to the people who voted for Brexit. It's most detrimental to them. To be honest, for me, for people, who are, say, college educated and stuff, there's a certain level of privilege that you'll have and that you'll know, like, well, this doesn't affect me that much. Materially, it doesn't affect me. But yeah, it's something that will affect future generations, and something that, for me, makes me less likely to entertain the idea of moving back and making UK my home again.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that influences or informs your music making right now, or at least at the time?
Yes, I think it's made my songwriting more I guess angry, I would say, but like I don't know, like I don't know if it doesn't always translate to like that means, oh, the drums are going to be louder or guitars going to be louder or my voice is going to be screechy or something. I just think in terms of the tone of the things I'm talking about. But I think like it's maybe sit with it a bit longer, and go, well, I'm sure I'm angry, but I'm not just going to write the first thing that comes to my head. I want to express kind of what this idea is. Why do I feel this way? What are these ideas that I can't really? Because I always think of it like I write songs because this is the only way to express these ideas. Because if I was to write it in an essay, I don't think it would fully capture what I'm trying to say. If I was to do it in any other medium, I'm not sure if it would fully. If I was just to talk about one song for an hour, I don't think I'd still get to the heart of what the song is about. But if you listen to the song, you might have a better idea of what it's about than most of what I could tell you. So,
Do you think the song, the music, does a better job of not just conveying the message, but also the feeling that you have at the time? Is that what it is? It's like the emotion.
exactly. Yeah, it's the emotion. That's what I'm trying to capture more. When I think of like, oh well, I'm not going to sing a song going, oh, Boris Johnson is a dick. That's good for like a punk band, and by all means, like, I'm sure there's many of those songs available. But like, whereas I think what I see is like it's a system. It's designed to be this way. If it wasn't this guy, it would be another terrible person. And I'm not here to kind of bang on about the system either. I feel like there's lots of bands who've done that before, Rage Against the Machine and stuff. But I think it's a lot of it's just about, well, how does it make me feel? Living under this, and how do I kind of come out of it? One of the songs, my more recent songs, was Dresden, which was kind of inspired by a lot of like the gaslighting you hear from people, kind of like minimizing the actions of governments that are racist, or minimizing the actions of corporations that are racist, or of other people that are racist, and just pretending that maybe racism isn't so bad. Maybe there is a point to it. Maybe there is, and then we end up just talking about those things for ages, whether like I think there's just a lot of stuff that we end up talking about, like, is this okay, or is it not okay, instead of just talking about, well, how actually do we feel? If I think we should just, maybe it's a bit of a trust in our feelings a bit more, and go, well, you're hurting someone's feelings. Is that really that important? Is that really what you want to do? And it's exhausting as well for people who are victims of abuse, victims of violence, constantly having to say, no, this is really, actually, my feelings are real. And but that's something that, maybe I talk about in quite a lot of songs, I don't know, but I think it's just about, yeah, how do you feel in the end, and
Yeah, I
what's
think
going to come out of it.
that's beautiful. The line I just wrote down is that music transcends logical debate, right? Like the idea that we could sit here, we could debate it all day, but truly you can't understand where I'm coming from until you can feel how I feel, right? And the music helps
Right.
somebody at
Yeah.
least closer feel how you feel on the song.
Yeah, right. Like, I think the internet is perfect for creating so much debate and with a lack of kind of connecting to somebody. I remember when I was a kid, and and we had maybe I was like 6 years old, and we had a talk about racism or something. And to me, I just was like, well, this is the most awful thing, because, as a kid, I was just putting it into the most simplest terms, is that it was like, you're hurting someone's feelings. That isn't nice. These ideas aren't nice. Like, you don't know anyone. Everyone is different. You can't just like put a blanket and go, these people, or, and it was, and what's funny is that the internet goes, hey, let's open these let's actually have a debate now. Is racism okay, or is it not okay? And they're like, well, it must be okay because this president said this, or this prime minister just said this. So, and and they're like, yeah, yeah, okay, cool. I don't like it, but I think he's still fine. I think this is still fine. I think this is still okay. And I think that's the kind of the gaslighting I'm talking about. It was just like you you want some recognition from fellow humans, from your fellow man, to be like, oh yeah, what that person said sucked. I'm sorry that you had to hear that. I'm sorry that that's targeted at you. But instead, it's like, no, this is my guy, and maybe in a way he's got a point. Maybe he's got, and that's what I find. It can be very tiring on the soul, and um, I think the songs are a good way for me to kind of remind myself I still have to live in this world. I'm not going to change it. My songs are never going to change it. But it might find me, it might find you, it might find someone out there in the right moment and make them feel something and make them remind themselves why we do anything in life and why life is precious, why it's great at times and many times. It's just I think we get bogged down with what's shit. Our brain is hardwired to point at the things that scare us, you know.
Mm. You know, you say your songs won't change it. I've kind of changed my viewpoint in life, right? So there's like these big, large things that I feel are broken and need to be fixed, and I feel overwhelmed. You know, it's like like it's easy to drown in that pool. You know, it's like there's all these things and I can't fix them. I'm just one small person, and so I've tried to shrink my sphere of influence, like, you know, put my efforts towards things that I can actually influence. So I try like and do small little things, like, you know, like that. It's that old story, you know, of how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? You know, so I try to take little bites, and for me, I've learned that art, you know, whatever form it comes in, is that person's opportunity to make those small changes, right? Those small nudges you push people ever so slightly in one direction or another, right? Towards good, hopefully, you know, you're pushing them towards enlightenment or empathy or something like that. And
I like that.
Yeah, definitely. When you put that much heart and soul into something, you are changing the world. The trick is it's a small ripple, and, you know, we create that ripple and then eventually we're gone and we don't get to see the full impact of that, right? But a little at a time, you're putting out that good stuff.
Yeah. I read something recently that said something like about art being like the jewels or the decoration for life, like kind of it might not be like entirely necessary, but, you know, like I think the point was that it's like, I guess life, we would just be stuck with all the things that make us sad or that we feel like are a problem in life. And I think, you know, you can have a crappy day at work. You might have to spend hours filing your taxes or trying to respond calmly to a passive aggressive email, and you know, but you know what, you put on some music, or, you know, you got like you're gonna go see a movie with your friends, or, you know, there's just those things are what keep you going and remind you that there's a lot of magic and beauty in life. So yeah, I'm happy to contribute to that in some way, and, you know, if 10 people listen to it, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like it can impact people in so many ways, and it just needs to be one person. That's okay. You know, I do it mostly for me, and I know it changes my life, and it's a nice feeling every time I create something new, because it's kind of like I just kind of, it's almost like I dreamt it up out of nothing. You know, that's amazing that I can just exist on this earth and dream up something and go, all right, now I'm going to record it, and it will be a thing that anyone could listen to anytime.
Yeah. What's interesting to me too is to think about, you've created that music and it will exist from now theoretically until forever. Like a piece of you, like a tangible piece of you will be in the world. Isn't that kind of weird to think about sometimes?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think like, yeah, like I kind of remove myself from the equation after I've finished it, you know? because there's a good chance in 2 weeks' time I'll hate the song. Um, and then, but like I'll probably come back to it another time. It depends on. I think with songs is different mood. Like there'll be a day where you'll listen to like Wonderwall and be like, oh, not this song again. But then another time you'll hear it and you're like, ah. I remember this is a magical song. It's hitting me in the right moment now, and it doesn't matter that it's been playing a million times. Like, I think that's just so I try and detach myself a bit from it. I think it's just I always think of it like I'm not if I come up with something amazing in a song and I think, oh, this is great, this is amazing. Um, I think like it can be easy to kind of be like, oh, I'm a genius. I came up with this amazing thing and it's so cool and like um and I try to take the view of like this is just the inspiration came to me and I'm glad I was ready for it and open enough for it and I can record it and do it. And so that also helps me with when someone says to me, yeah, this song is shit as well, that I can be like, well, that's the inspiration that came to you in that moment, sorry you didn't like it. And so then I don't take it too personally and go, it's down to me as well. So I guess it works both ways that like I don't, if in 100 years time people are in their nuclear apocalypse or climate change apocalypse bunkers listening to my music and loving it, that's not something that's not something I think too much about. And vice versa, if someone says this is the biggest pile of trash I've ever heard, that's fine.
Let's go. I mean, I don't know. Pretty much everything artistic-ish I do. Like, it's like if you want to call this an artistic outlet, I don't know if you can. Maybe a creative outlet. Doing these podcasts,
Yeah.
I can't help but wrap a piece of myself up into this, no matter
and
how
I think,
much I want to distance myself.
yeah, right. No, I mean, like, yeah, you're totally right. Like, it's very personal when I'm creating it, it's very personal to me.
Mm.
And I guess with musicians, there's a different quality there where you get to play the songs again live, and the songs take a different meaning to me live, because maybe the time you wrote that breakup song and you're like, I don't care anymore about this situation. 5 years later, I'm singing it live, but you've got to find a way for it to mean something to you in that moment, because otherwise there's no point playing it. It's just it. So yeah, I always find like I'm changing my set list for every show based on like, this is the thing I'm feeling right now, and this is what I feel has most of where I'm at right now in these songs, even if they were written way before, So
that's an interesting thought. Like the idea that a song that you write today might mean something to you now, and then 5 years from now, when you're on stage,
yeah,
you can have a different meaning altogether if you want it to.
Yeah, I think it's your interpretation. I think that's the magic of music. They always there's always that adage about like you can have 100,000 people outside in a field listening to the same song, and every single person is singing along, but they all have their own interpretation of what that song means. And yeah, I think that's the lovely thing about songs, that for the most part they never get too specific. Some of them do, and I always think about like those songwriters. I'm like, then you're gonna have trouble singing that one when you break up, or but you could probably find a way to. You could even still then even find a way for it to mean something else to you. There's always you're always putting a lot of yourself into it, but yeah, you're I guess the power of it is kind of how you define it when you're done with it afterwards. And I think like the recorded version, I'm like, okay, cool, that's there. That was the moment I recorded it, and there are different, like if I probably all my songs, if I recorded it again, maybe I've learned some things and I would do some things better, but you can't recreate the magic of what you were feeling in that moment. And I think that's when you play it live, you're not trying to recreate what you were feeling back then. You're just doing what you feel now.
That's interesting. So do you think, and this I may be way off here, but do you think you put more of yourself, like more of who you are in the performance rather than the song itself?
Uh, no, I would say it's the same. I would say
Yeah.
it's because when I'm recording it, I guess that I mean the performance of the recording it, that's the performance is you know more my maybe it's more of it actually in the recording process. I don't know, like because sometimes the recording process is often a lot more lonely, whereas I don't know it's different elements. On my own I'll record and I'll be like, this is just between me and the recording device. This is just there's no one else, and it's just me doing it, and I can be as me as I want without fear of anyone looking or watching whatever and anything like
Hmm.
that. But there's something also freeing about doing it on stage too, in front of lots of people, that maybe it feels like you're almost this other being. You're no longer just a regular person. Just you. There's almost this expectation that you should be performing. You're on a stage. People are looking at you. So yeah, maybe there's that freedom as well to be fully yourself, and it can be quite freeing doing it in front of lots of people. And because in a way, a live show feels like a judgment-free space a lot of the time. That these people are coming to watch something and connect with something. They're coming with the right idea. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I put myself fully into all of it, but what comes out on the other end is it can, I guess, differ on the day. I don't know, but
Hmm.
they're both interesting spaces for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I had never really thought about the fact that those two, just the writing process and then, sitting in the studio and recording, because you do all the instruments in your recordings, right? So it's your
Yeah.
vocals, your guitar, your drums, your everything. And then
Mm.
live performance, obviously you can't strap all that stuff yourself at once and
No,
make it happen.
it wouldn't be that fun either. Yeah, I quite enjoy the having friends and doing it, together with people and feeding off of each other, and maybe we have slightly different interpretations of something, and together we can respond to what the audience is seeing and respond to each other. That's a really nice element. Yeah, in the studio it can be quite a challenge, but it's liberating too, because it's I'm fully responsible for what comes out on the other end. So, but challenging because you have an idea in your head and you're like, well, if I'm gonna do the drums for this, how's the bass gonna sound for this? And then you play something like, and then you do the drums, and you're like, nope, that bass sounds crap now, so I have to do that again. So there's a lot of like going back and doing stuff again, and figuring out the parts.
Does that give you a sense of pride? Do you think you wouldn't have if you had other people contributing to the creation of the songs?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I mean that pride is not the driver, but
Right.
it's you know, I think it's the having being accountable to myself. It helps. I feel like when I've worked with other people, it's like, okay, so you're gonna do this bit, okay, cool, and then it doesn't come out exactly how I envisioned it, and now I don't like the song as much. I don't know. So it just feels like if I don't like the thing, I know I can just go, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go change it now. I'm going to go do this." And when I finish it, there's a bit of pride, but it's mostly just I'm tired and I'm done, and I can't wait to be excited for the next one, to do the
That's
next thing, because it's you know I'll end up because I'll mix the song too, and so then I end up listening to my own song about a million times, and then I'm like, how is anyone else going to enjoy this? I have no idea. Like, because I've got I get to the point where I'm like, my ears are fried. I don't know if I like this song anymore. And then, but I'm getting better at kind of setting boundaries for myself too, and going, yeah, okay, take take 2 weeks after you finished it. listen to it again and then make some changes again, and just so it feels fresh.
Gotcha. How are you at like compromise in general in life? Because it sounds like in your music, you don't necessarily. The idea that you're doing it all doesn't mean you necessarily have to compromise. I'm just curious how that
Yeah,
translates
that's
to the rest
probably
of your life.
why I do a lot of compromising in my life outside of music, because I think this is the one area where I can afford to never compromise. Like I've always been someone who's like got an open mind. I'm willing to have my mind changed as well.
Mm.
If someone can present me a good reason why I should do something that maybe I always vowed to never do, um, then I'd be open to, and sometimes you need that in music. My manager will tell me, hey, you should do you know an interview with this person, or you should go play this show, whatever, or go do this show that only pays $15. It'll be worth it for your career. So you kind of like think about it and go, you know, if I was completely uncompromising, I'd say no to most of the things, but I think there's an element of like, okay, with the arts in general, there's an element of like, well, we're all just gambling, we're just trying out a few things. We don't know what's going to work, or there's no guaranteed formula for success. And I think in the writing process as well, it's like, you know, there's that you're kind of compromising with yourself all the time. Like, here's my set ideas of how I think a song should sound, and then you play something else, and then you go, let me try doing it this way. Do I like it? And so yeah, I think there's an element of like not compromising because you're fully in control of the art, but I think there's always the elements of like, you got to be ready to try something new, and from yourself, to hear it from yourself, not just from outside influences. So I think that's maybe that's the distinction. Maybe I won't compromise too much with outside factors, but internally I would compromise with myself all the time. And I think everywhere else in life, I'm happy to compromise all the time. I like going to a restaurant where someone tells me what the menu is and I don't have to choose anything. Because
Well, with a perfectionist artist, I've heard that they never finish their work; they just abandon it at some point. They just have to tell themselves, "Okay, I've got to stop now and leave it." Is that
yeah,
something you have to kind of do to yourself?
yeah. But you know what? Even if after I abandon it, I'll always listen to it again, and I'll be like, oh, I can change it still. uh, so I'm trying to like, I don't know. It's difficult, man. Like I don't want to be a perfectionist and never release something. And I think finishing the work is great. And sure, it will never feel finished, but there is a point where you have to say, well, don't you want to work on the next thing?
Right.
And that's what I try to tell myself, to motivate myself to finish something, because I'll never get to start the next thing if I don't finish the last thing. So I've been recording today, and I just finished. I think 2 days ago, I finished 2 new songs, and the only reason I could say they're finished is because I was making progress on a new song, and I was like, well, I want to start recording that one now, and I know I'll never start recording it if I don't say these two are finished. So, are they finished? I don't know. I mean, like I'll listen. Maybe I'll listen to them again in a month, and I'll be like, well, they're not. I can do something else to it. But that's what I always try and propel myself forward with. Is like, well, there's the next idea. The next idea will never magically appear. Like that's what I always say is turning nothing into something. You're turning something out from midair. From thin air. Nothing was there, and then you've created a song, and that magic that feeling of creating that something is amazing. And you'll never get that if you just spend all your life trying to perfect one thing. And I always start a song thinking like, oh, this is going to be amazing, this is going to be a masterpiece or whatever, and then halfway through the song I'm like, nope, it's just another song. And that's what's kept me going, is that I just take my ego down a notch and go, nope, it's just another song. It's fine. Someone might listen to it and go, that's a masterpiece. Someone will say, whatever, I don't care. Um,
Well, to me, that seems like the best place to be. Is that because if you create a masterpiece and you agree that it's a masterpiece, it's like how am I ever going to top that? So as long as you know that
yeah,
you've
right.
always got something you can do better and better, you just keep heading up, keep making more.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's the beauty of living a creative life in some way, you know.
Well, you've moved to Toronto. So how long have you been over there?
When was Brexit? 2016. So yeah, it's shit. It's almost 6 years.
Yeah. Does it feel
No
like
way.
home to you now?
No. I don't know. Yeah, there are elements, you know. Yeah, I would say not the city itself, just I don't know how to explain it. Just that I have a home, and when I'm in it, it feels like home. Um, but you know, like just I think it's just I definitely feel like uh, I don't feel Canadian, you know, and I don't feel like a Torontonian. You know, when I talk to other people from Toronto or who've lived here much longer than I have, you know, I don't feel like I fully like fit into the idea or whatever the city is. I don't know. Have you ever been to Toronto?
I've never been to Canada. I have not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Canada's cool. It's got some nice stuff, but you know, I'm sure you have most of it the same, you know, in so many of the cities that you've got to visit in the US. But yeah, it's there's a you know I'm still finding my feet here and still I'm still making friends. You know, I've got some friends, which is nice, but you know, it's a harder thing to do when you're not from the city and you don't have, say, something like university or school to kind of like bond you together. So yeah, but for the most part, like it's home. You know, it's a yeah, it's a decent
It
place to
does the
be
trick.
in.
How's the music scene there?
It's good. It's there's so many really good bands here. Actually, it's a lot of good music. Yeah. Um, I don't. Yeah, I think music scene is thriving. There's always some good bands you can go see, and you can go see them for really cheap. Um, and it feels like a lot of people put a lot of effort into their craft. Um, yeah, I'm still getting to know other musicians. I find musicians generally are not always the friendliest bunch. So I think they're very like protective over their like one corner of success they have. I don't know, like they're just like you know. So it's and I think by nature maybe we're a bit more introverted, and then we just write all our feelings down and then sing them. But like it's an odd thing for a performance art that I find most of the people who do it are like actually quite shy and reserved, and I think that's so yeah, I'd say a better music scene than London, to be honest. That's something I was a bit surprised about because I think for like small venues for indie artists, I don't think London is as friendly. I think Toronto has a lot to work on. It could be like a lot better. There's like a lot of cities in Europe, I would say, is more accommodating where they pay artists better. They, you know, free drinks, free meals are more of a like a standard practice for musicians. Um, so yeah, there's some things to improve, but I think it's generally better. There's a lot of good indie music venues, and some that will pay a decent amount.
That's cool. Well, I
Yeah.
saw when I was doing a little digging around, I saw you're going to do Decolonize in May. Is that right? Is that over in Berlin?
Decolonize,
Decolonize.
a portmanteau of decolonize and noise. Just a cool name.
I
I
get
think.
it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, because it's a alternative BIPOC festival. So yes, I was really excited to be invited to play at that. That's something that, I would say is a drawback of the music scene here in most places, is that especially if you're playing rock and roll, kind of indie music, it's most of the bills you play with will be usually four bands, all four white dudes, and that to me feels like a detriment to the arts itself, because I want to hear I want to hear everyone's stories.
Mm.
I want to hear stories I've not heard before, and you know, there's that's often the case on the bills in Toronto, which is a shame. But I would say that's the one thing uh, pulling things back. So yeah, um, it's cool to be connected to these people in Berlin, and they seem to be putting on quite a lot of shows focused on um, people from Black, Indigenous, and people of color, from those communities, and from queer communities and stuff. So it's and in the alternative genre, which is really cool, because I think alternative music, rock music is predominantly male and white, and I think that's like maybe that's why people say rock is dead, because I mean it's definitely alive, but it's just you're hearing the same story about some guy on his porch, he misses that girl, and I don't know, like, or I don't know, it was tough growing up in the suburbs. I don't know, like it's so, and I'm excited to hear what all the other bands have to say at these shows, and maybe that's where we've got to in music. It's we've tried every instrument, every single kind of idea. You get an artist constantly getting sued because their idea sounds like someone else's idea. And I think like maybe in terms of what you play musically, that's, you know, it's all, a lot of it's been done to death, that you're never going to have a fully unique idea, or, but in terms of the message, the story you have, and the person singing it, the person writing it, the person playing it, their feeling, their energy, that's going to be a little bit different, and that's going to be what keeps rock and roll alive. So yeah, I'm excited. We're going to Berlin. I don't know when this is airing, but we'll be in Berlin May 28th to 29th to play the festival. We've got a show the night before in Dresden on the 27th of May, and yeah, it's just I've never played anything like this where it's the opposite of a standard Toronto show, where it's four bands, four white dudes each. To most of the bands are going to be people of color, Black people, Indigenous people, and yeah, I think it's quite unique, and I'm hoping that's. I mean, saying how little things can change, can change the world in some way, create little ripple effects. I think something like this would inspire me, maybe inspire more people in Canada. Maybe we should do our own kind of like festival like this over here, and maybe it's something that we can encourage more places to do, because it's cool to have a little bit of diversity on the bill, and all that stuff. But I think these things will thrive if they have their own spaces to begin with, and really like get more people into alternative music, and see that there is something for them, there is something for everyone, and maybe that will keep rock and roll alive.
That's cool. Do you think, or maybe perhaps, are you hoping to like kind of create some community at this decolonize thing? Maybe start growing your circle. I know you said it's a bunch of introverts, so maybe you
Yeah,
can
right.
break them out.
I would hope so. Yeah, I think that's something I I am missing from my experience as a musician, is that you write all this stuff on your own, you record it all on your own, and then when you talk about it, and you talk about it in detail with people who are not musicians, you're gonna bore them to death. And so it'd be nice just to like know other musicians. Um, you know, you know, for some people it's like a networking thing. Maybe, there's elements of like, oh, I can get you opening for this band, or I can help you out with this thing. But for me, it's mostly just, it would be nice to just ex- know that this experience is not just limited to my own, and that we have some things that overlap, and we can share that, and that will help keep us accountable, help inspire us to keep running. And so yeah, I'm hoping to kind of get more of a community going, and it'd be nice to know other musicians who play similar genres to me, who identify as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color, and that means that maybe if I collaborate with them, or anything ideas I get off them, it's something that's new to me, to be honest. I grew up listening to mostly white men on the radio, and a lot of my ideas came from them. And I think, we're seeing it more and more in cinema, for example. On TV, there's more shows and films on a bigger platform telling stories that we've never heard before. And that's exciting to me, because that means life isn't just going to keep trucking on as this boring thing where we go, okay, this is the same old story. I've heard this before. And I think that just shows you that the possibilities of creativity are limitless. Even though, with music, there's the same number of notes for everyone. And largely, there's only so many different kind of noises you can make. But the where you can, like, the well of ideas is still growing, because we've not been that accustomed to hearing everyone's story, and the digital age is making that possible, which is fantastic. Despite many of its shortcomings.
Yeah, for sure. So something you talked about, which is near and dear to my heart, is hearing a lot of different voices from a lot of different places, right? To me, that means not just ethnicity or religious background, but socioeconomic circumstance. Like, I grew up super poor, and now I'm not super poor, and I can feed myself and everything is fine.
That's great.
But just hearing people from like all different walks of life really is a big thing to me. And I noticed, so I skimmed some of the other interviews you'd done. I try not to read them, because I don't want to spoil the surprise. Like, I don't like spoilers.
Sure.
But I did notice you mentioned a couple of times authenticity in music, and that was really important to you. And I was thinking that, to me, that maybe goes a little bit hand in hand with hearing different voices. And so I was just curious if you would maybe elaborate a little bit why authenticity in music is so important for you.
I think that, especially, I don't know if it's especially now, but I think or at least since I've been on this earth, that people have been obsessed with images, with and projecting ideas of who they are, and maybe it's becoming more apparent now with filters on Instagram, and everyone's become their own, like, newspaper, and they're editing what everyone can read about them, and they're choosing, hey, here are the highlights. Here's me living my best life. Here's the best things about me, and it's despite how connected we are, I feel like it's living in certain parts of the world can be a very lonely experience. And I think that authenticity is what helps cut through that. I think it helps acknowledge, hey, we're largely the same. And my experience, if I tell it authentically to you, you might be more inclined to tell your story authentically. And that might actually save someone's life. That might actually change someone's life in more ways than anyone can ever know. And I think it's it's a shame to live life afraid of what people are going to think of you, or afraid of, I don't know, just afraid of connecting with who you are, whether it makes you look like, I think for something that always bothered me growing up is like um, patriarchal thinking, like a very misogynist, male-dominated kind of idea. If you do this and this, then you can no longer be considered a man by other men, or even by society as a whole. If you do these things, and no matter how stupid these things are, you'd be expected to follow them and blindly just do them. And I think that's inauthentic. And um, art is the space to be your truest self.
Hmm.
So if you're going to do it, be your truest self. Don't use it as another way to tell everyone, hey, this is how you should be, and look how great I am, and regardless of how miserable you are, because I think a lot of people grew up with who had boomer parents probably grew up quite miserable because their parents were, were lived a life being told by adverts, uh, by religion, hey, if you do this and this is correct. If your heterosexual son behaves in this way, then they are fine. If your daughter doesn't go out late and dresses this way, she is fine, and everything is fine. And regardless of how miserable it makes everyone, we're just all sucking it up, and just and I think that is takes away from the magic of life. And life is way more interesting when everyone is who they are, and just shows us, reveals themselves to us, and shows them, this is who I am. Because this is how you get to like move forward and learn and understand that there's more going on than just those passive aggressive emails from Karen. Like there's just, because as I say, there's all these, there's a lot of things to grind you down in life. And what makes it special is people living creatively, and yeah, learning from one another. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful sentiment. Like just the idea of it all. But something that pops into my mind, and this isn't necessarily for me, because I don't know, man. I just like, I got to the point in life where I just don't give a shit anymore. But like, it's scary. It's scary showing people who you really are, right? Because it's dangerous. Now I've been most so vulnerable, and the idea that, I do that, I could easily be attacked or shunned or any XYZ thing. So just the idea that use this as a vehicle to be just your true self, and to let your people find you, I think is beautiful, but a little scary at the same time.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, uh, like, yeah. I mean, I've had the experience of putting myself out there and getting not just like totally rejected, but being racially abused, having, I've had hate crimes committed upon me, bec- like the day of I released a song. I've had someone uh, you know put some graffiti out, and with my phone number, like tarnishing me, and I've had music industry people make crude comments about my name and where it comes from, or my background. And that is always the risk, that is, of putting yourself out there when people are so consumed with hate and afraid of, I think it's like a fear of acknowledging who they are, and fear of, it's not really, I try and see it's like, it's not really about me. Sure, it hurts, but I think people distract themselves with all this anger and hatred, because once that subsides, all that's left is their own pain, and probably that's what led to their anger and hatred. And I think that people are afraid to deal with their own pain because it's difficult. And I think that's just like, but no amount of, I don't know, targeting someone based on their gender, their identity, their whatever, like their religion, their, their ethnicity. None of that is gonna make their pain go away. It's just a mask, and they can scream into the void, go on Reddit and write posts and like about how they hate these people or that person, or they can harm them or their property or make death threats or whatever. It's all just a way of avoiding the real problem of they're too afraid to be their authentic self. They're too afraid to acknowledge who they truly are, and too afraid to acknowledge that what's holding them back is their pain. And yeah, and maybe just taking a moment just to reflect on it and go, you know what, this sucks, and I'm gonna try and get through it. But that's that. I think that's just so that's probably what I try and tell myself when I'm afraid of doing something, that the consequences are too small, to be honest. For what it's worth, the thing that is living a life creatively, living a life authentically is a far, there's the risk reward ratio is just too high. It's you have to go do it. You have to do that regardless of what people are going to say, what they're going to do. And that's how we limit that hate in the world as well. The more of us doing that, the people who have that hate they're the ones who should feel isolated, and they're the ones who should feel like, you know what, this is something for me to deal with, not for somebody else.
Absolutely, man. That's tough. So this is, everything you talk about is very real. It's very visceral for you. I mean, look at me. I'm cisgendered white guy, so that's not my truth. I've been hated for a lot of different things, but not the color of my skin, or the way my parents speak, or any of that stuff. But something you did say was very personal to me. So like, this person doesn't fit what is considered to be a man. Like you don't portray masculinity. Like I guess I've been fortunate in a sense that I've never fit in anywhere. So I never really like I've never for most of my life I've never had people. I've never had community. Like I've always just been sort of this weird outsider, and I've never, well, I don't know, in most of my life I didn't care about hiding my feelings or saying somebody that I appreciate them, and it's led me to find my people and have really deep, meaningful relationships with people like Alex Hajar. I talked to him. You're a podcast all about friends, and I talked to him about a friend of mine, Will, that passed away. And every time I talk to that guy, I tell him, "Man, I love you." And we were like brothers. Yeah. Dude couldn't be more different from me. But just the fact that I was willing to take a chance, put myself out there, and just be my authentic self, and made a real connection, like with another human being. And that was something I never had growing up as a kid. Like I never had meaningful relationships with, even my family, so to find that as an adult, and to find that through community, all because I was willing to be vulnerable. Yes, it's dangerous and it's scary as shit. Yeah. And some people are going to hate you for it. But like you said, the risk reward scenario, the reward is so much greater than the risk associated with that stuff. And
exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy how some people are so afraid of protecting themselves or protecting the image that they want people to believe they are, that they aren't willing, they're sacrificing these amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I agree, man. That's great. You can do that. I think that's the challenge for, say, people who, who are queer, or trans, or people of color. Like, for them living their authentic life, that's probably a much bigger challenge, and
Hmm.
the risk is, might be actual violence and stuff, and
Yeah, yeah.
and you know the examples I said, like there was some violence and stuff and things like that, and then uh, yeah, it's tough, but to me, living this way is probably my only choice as well. I feel like um, it's it's easy to get, say, in the corporate world, or anywhere that's like not the creative sphere, but you're expected to be a part of. I find like those things are too powerful to, um, the forces that they have are too powerful for, say, for someone who is from a racialized or marginalized community, for them to be fully themselves, in those spaces. You go to a job and they tell you, hey, we expect you to look like this and this. We expect you to behave in a certain way. So I feel like the arts has always been the only space for me to that I can be fully myself. And so if there's a risk of from something I do in the arts, I'm totally okay with it. Like, because to me, it's like the, you know, sure, okay, I could get actual aggressions, on stage or something, um, but living a life with constant microaggressions, not for me either, And so, and microaggressions for not even being my authentic self, it's for being a very like homogenized, very sterile version of me, where it's like just writes very polite emails and says, "Yes, ma'am, I'll do this whenever you like." So, yeah, I think it's just, yeah, it's so important to be your true self. And I think that's great that you're open with your friends and be honest, because I think it's just like, especially among men, it's just, I don't know, we are raised on some trash that's just like just telling us like, hey, never like tell anyone your feelings, never cry, never do,
Hmm.
it's just like, well, it's going to come out some way, and it's not going to be pretty for the people around you. So let out the good things so that you don't have to you don't have to deal with the bad stuff all the time, and just it's just yeah.
Yeah. And it also, like when the bad stuff does come along, you have somebody to share that with. They say
Totally,
like
man.
a problem shared is like, cut in half sort of thing. So it's what you do develop
Exactly.
community. You have a safety net. You know.
Yeah, I think that's such a big thing. That's what I was saying about music. It's just like we're all a lot of musicians. We're all doing this thing that's kind of, we're struggling with it. It can be a lonely thing, an endeavor sometimes, and it's just to hear from another person telling you their authentic story of them, their experiences. You go, oh, okay, well, maybe this thing isn't actually so challenging because someone else is doing it, and I thought they were some superhero before, but the way they're telling me is just like they're just a normal person dealing with the same thing. So maybe I can do it too. And I think when we only see the images of someone who seems to be living the most amazing life, we assume that any pain that befalls them, any difficulty that befalls them is something that it either doesn't happen to them, or they just deal with it just so easily. And I think like we, you know we're we rely on each other to kind of get through this weird thing that we're doing, which is just like, I don't know, living. I don't know. It is bizarre when you stop and think about it and go like, oh, and there's this. We're just one tiny speck of dust in this universe, and nature is indifferent to our suffering. It's just like, it's yeah, it's bizarre, but yet we're just consumed with very menial, mundane
Hmm.
things. Yeah.
Something I've noticed is you've said how either the process or portions of music are lonely. You've said that 4 times now.
Hmm.
And so it made me wonder, like, you as a kid, is that what music did for you? Did that help you find community? Did you feel seen through listening to somebody's music?
Yeah, yeah, I did. Uh, as I grew up with my mom and my sister, my mom was raising us alone and was working a lot. So
Hmm.
there'd be usually quite a few hours after school where the house would be empty. My sister being 8 years older, so when I was a kid, so she might be out with her friends or something, or her classes would run later or whatever, like. And also, if she was home, it would really be hanging out that much because having that age gap, we didn't have like
Hmm.
the same interests and stuff. But so there's an element of like it being like an only child, I guess, in a way, but like not really, But I just say is that there's elements of where you try and find your own fun, and creativity plays a big part because you have to be imaginative to find your fun. And yeah, I did find that like the the day I started coming into school with a guitar, and then the people would come over and talk to me, and then we'd talk about music, and you just find a community that way. And it just and then it would be a case of like making mixed CDs for friends, and then your friendship is based on things that you listen to. And um yeah, I think that's helped. And like it's helped me since I've been here. As I say, musicians aren't always the friendliest bunch, but you can get there in the end with them. But um I think there's people I've spoken to purely because I'm in a band, and I've become friends with them, just via like chatting online, and them telling me like, oh, I like your music, or oh, I'm doing this with my music. And there's a community there.
Hmm.
There's definitely something there.
So growing up, it helped you with your loneliness. It helped you kind of come out of your shell and build
Yeah,
relationships, and now you're sort of manifesting that outwardly with your music, and in the hopes that it will help somebody else maybe feel seen or feel less
yeah,
lonely and all that stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's bizarre when I look back on like
It's
the
beautiful.
like reserved kid I was. Thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I was so shy and didn't really talk to anyone.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but music, you just sit there and you just like noodle on a guitar. And then yeah, I don't know, there's something about just you have a song and suddenly that makes you okay to get in front of 100 people and sing it to them. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah. It's like pulling on your Superman outfit. You jump in your phone book booth and
yeah.
suit up, and then you're ready. Save the day.
Yeah, it is a bit that. Like, yeah, it's some, yeah, because you know, prior to music, I couldn't have ever imagined doing that. And I still like if I'm with a group of friends, I don't like I'm not like the center of attention. I'm not the one speaking the loudest and telling a big story, and everyone is looking at me. Like, that to me just riddles me with anxiety. So, but it's funny that I go on stage and it's like, hey, everyone, look at me. I'm gonna play you a song now. So yeah.
That's so cool. I love that full circle sort of piece. That's beautiful. I mean, I grew up single mom, much older sister. My mom for most of
No.
my like young kid life worked two jobs, so
Mm.
I'd maybe see her before dark, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally get that. That's cool that you found a thing. I never really found a thing. I just kind of muddled my way through everything with like super quiet, super socially anxious, and all that stuff. But
Ah.
yeah, like I get it, like the yearning, the longing to like figure out where you fit in, and all of a sudden somebody sees you, or there you hear a song that's like you're singing about me. It's like
Mm.
I know how powerful that feeling can be. So
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I try to be super respectful of people's time. I know we're like bumping up pretty close to it. So right here at the end, I usually like to ask folks if you have anything you want to promote, or is there any specific way you like people to interact with you or connect with you online, or like what socials do you like, or any of that stuff?
Um. Yeah. I usually like to connect on people on Instagram. So yeah, my at Howling Circus. Um, but I'm trying to tell people the more personal stuff via email. So I usually try and tell people like sign up for my mailing list because it feels I don't know who's watching. It feels weird getting so personal, and it's just like out there in the ether. But yeah, I don't know when is this going out?
Probably not this weekend, but since you've got some stuff coming up, I can push it out the next weekend. Or, well,
no,
I might be able to
no
edit
rush.
All right, I'll do it next weekend then.
Oh, okay. No. Just some podcasts I've been on there like, oh, this won't air for another 4 months. I'll be like, oh, okay, then let's talk about this song. Yeah. So yeah, and then So I guess the main thing is these couple of shows in Germany we've got. Not that I expect that you have hundreds of listeners, thousands of listeners in Germany, but
I have no idea.
You have no idea? Okay, well, yeah, I'm playing a couple of shows in Germany. Decolonize Festival, which is a pretty cool thing happening on May 28th in Berlin. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, get in touch, I usually read private messages. If people want to send a message, say hi. You can find me at Howlin' Circus. I honestly can't bother with Twitter, and I've lost interest in Facebook, so I can't be bothered to do all of them all the time. I try a little bit here and there, but and TikTok, oh my gosh, it's a whole production I can't be bothered for right now. Maybe I'll get really into it at some point, but it's with making music and doing all that stuff, maybe that'll be a phase I get into once I actually finish the next album and release it, and then I'll be like, okay, I need a break. Maybe I'll just spend all my day on social media. I don't know.
So for the mailing list, do they go to howlingcircus.com to sign up for that?
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't even done an email in like 3 months. So like, but it will be good when the next email does come because I'll actually have something to say. So, so check it out.
All right, cool. Well, Jafa, I appreciate your time, and to me, time is truly a gift. Like, you can get anything else, but you can't buy more time. So I truly appreciate that. You're open and honest and vulnerable, and I couldn't ask for anything else of you. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. It was an honor. Thank you.
All right, let me click stop.